It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio today. We get to check in with the Kaibab National Forest today. We've had Prescott National Forest, Coconino National Forest. Jeremy Human is here with the Kaibab National Forest. He is the Fire Management Officer for the Williams and Tusayan Ranger Districts. Is that right?
That's correct.
I nailed it. So Jeremy Human's in studio today. A couple of websites we want to make you aware of. You've been hearing us talk about on the radio. Just about everybody's on some sort of fire restriction, whether it's your own backyard or whether you're going to go camping or hiking or whatever you're doing. There are restrictions out there right now. So if you go to firerestrictions.us, you can find out about fire restrictions across all the national forests, state lands, BLM lands. All of that is on firerestrictions.us. If it's your backyard and wonder whether or not you can barbecue or not, or grill or whatever it may be, burning is not being allowed in most locations right now. Check with your local fire jurisdiction. Call them up. Cottonwood Fire, Prescott Fire, Central Arizona Fire, Copper Canyon. Just give them a call and find out what can I and can't I do in my own backyard when it comes to burning. So contact your local fire jurisdiction. And if you're curious as to what's going on with the fires in the state, there's several of them that have been going on lately. You can go to InsaWeb. That's usually what I just Google InsaWeb, Arizona, and it should come up. It should be a nice map of the United States. You can go right to Arizona, scroll in, and it'll actually highlight the incidents that are going on all over the state. And then you can actually zoom in on each of those incidents and find out where they're at right now. So insaweb.nwcg.gov is that website. And I'll mention those throughout the show. But Jeremy's here. Thank you for coming in, Jeremy Human.
Hey, good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right. Stage 1 fire restrictions. Let's start right there.
Okay.
We've had them coming up constantly. Last week, a bunch of them started. Kaibab National Forest has decided that this Friday at 8 a.m. on April 27th, they will be going into place as well. So things have changed.
Yep, so us and the Coconino both will be going into Stage 1 restrictions, which, you know, the different stages often is confusing for the public. Stage 1 restrictions essentially means no campfires in dispersed areas, only in exempted campgrounds. So you got to look at the individual order, fire restrictions order, and see which, if any, of the campgrounds have been exempted to allow you to still have a campfire there. So
okay, and I think it's when we go to Stage 2, which we're not in Stage 2 yet.
Nope.
But with the way this year is going, I can probably see it coming up around the corner at some point in time. Stage 2, there's no kind of fire at all in the forest.
Right.
I don't think even propane's allowed.
No, you can still have anything with a turnoff, but yeah, Stage 2 is no open fires, basically. It's got to have a shut-off valve.
Okay.
So you can still use, like a propane camp stove.
And this applies to charcoal, too. You can't have charcoal briquettes out there, dispersed camping.
Yep, absolutely.
And smoking is within enclosed buildings, enclosed vehicles, or within developed campgrounds as well.
Yep.
So that's
Cleared
the stuff.
Area.
And then is it banned, or is it just kind of really frowned upon to be out there welding and grinding and using a chainsaw in the forest? There's rules on that,
so,
too.
yeah, in Stage 1, there's rules on that. All that stuff really kicks in with Stage 2.
Okay.
But certainly, the current conditions we have and where we're at, even going into Stage 1, that should be a real good indicator for folks that, open burning on your private property, like you mentioned, depending on the fire district, the county, they have their own regulations for those. So that could be banned right now. And a lot of those will talk about, welding on your fence, those types of activities, grinding, things like that. So
I guess you bring up a good point, too. There's also the county, too. So although over the years, we have tried to consolidate this and make this easier to understand, there are differences between one forest and another. Like Prescott National Forest under Stage 1, you can't be out target shooting. But I believe on the Coconino, you can be target shooting. So it varies, and that's, again, why we bring up the firerestrictions.us. You really need to go to that site, depending on what forest you're going to be on, to decide what you can and can't do, because there are different rules a little bit here and there and some changes. So it'd always be good to take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I would just add, we're really collaborative, We have a fire restrictions call weekly, and all the partners are on that. So the county, adjoining forest, the Coke, the Prescott, the Tano, us, all your northern Arizona forests. So you'll get county government, you'll get emergency management, you'll get several of the fire departments on there, and we all talk where we're at, how many fires have we had that week, what was the cause, you know, so that we can really, we take, you know, the ability for folks to be able to enjoy their public lands very seriously, you know, and we want to make sure we're making good sound decisions to protect those that are either live adjacent to the national forest or are just out enjoying the, you know, the forest for the weekend. And, you know, we want to first and foremost protect those folks and life, property, things like that. So, you know, it's a critical decision for sure when we go into restrictions. It's not something we take lightly, and there's a lot of thought and conversations that go into it. So,
the thing is, though, if we do get a big fire, Kaibab, Coconino, whatever forest it may be on, I mean, we've seen them, the Rodeo Chetasky, the Wallow Fire, Slide Fire. If it's burned, it's gone. It's just gone. You can't get that back. Not fast anyway. So I think it's better to go in the restrictions and play it safe, because we're seeing more and more fires right now. Coconino National Forest had 40 abandoned campfires this last weekend. And I thought it was really odd that they had 6 down in the Red Rock Ranger District abandoned campfires, 2 of which were in developed campsites. So, yeah, we kind of have to protect ourselves. You have to protect us from ourselves almost, it seems like sometimes. What are the current conditions in the Kaibab? Because I know, although the Williams and Tusayan Ranger districts will be going under restrictions, the North Kaibab is not going to go under restrictions as of Friday.
Right.
And that's the North Rim of the Grand Canyon.
Correct.
What kind of paint a picture in our heads? What is kind of the difference between those 2 regions?
Okay, so we'll talk about what kind of goes into our decision making,
Sure.
what we look at. So there's a system called the National Fire Danger Rating System. Spits out all kinds of models for us and all kinds of numbers, right, based on our inputs. And so really there's 3 key things that we kind of really pay attention to in the Southwest. One's energy release component. That's kind of a seasonal tracking model for us. Has lots of different inputs, but kind of gives us an idea of seasonality. And it's something we've been tracking for a long time. And so, you know, you'll hear folks either, you know, in other media sources, things like that. You'll see it on the websites is, hey, we're really close to what we saw in '96. We're really close to what we saw in 2006, 2002. You know, you've been hearing a lot of that talk preseason, and so energy release component allows us to compare to those. Okay. 1,000-hour fuel moistures is another one. So those are our fuels, our larger logs to a certain diameter, you know. Not the real small stuff, not the pine needles, not the real small sticks.
The big down trees.
Yeah, kind of the bigger logs. And what that shows is that's kind of a long-term indicator of drought. Now, granted, we're in the Southwest, right? So even in the mountains, we're still essentially kind of a desert, drier climate.
Sure.
And so we're always in some stage of drought. 2017 was kind of an average year on the Kaibab as far as moisture went. We were a little above average, but not a ton. Monsoons, though, was on the lower end. So we were a little below average. We were about 76% of what we annually see on the Kaibab during monsoons. So you have that, and then, right, we had a really dry fall, really dry winter. So the lack of the moisture during monsoons followed up by this La Nina pattern and this dry fall winter. It's kind of set us up. We're probably 3 to 4 weeks ahead, depending on where you are, especially on the South Kaibab and the Coconino. We're about a month ahead. We're seeing conditions that we normally would see mid to the end of May. This is the earliest I can remember going into fire restrictions, you know, in a very long time. Memorial Day is usually kind of a big trigger point for us.
Exactly.
Right before Memorial Day, so that kind of gives folks a timeline. So you asked about the difference between the South Kaibab and the North Kaibab. So the other thing we pay attention to is
let's take a break.
Fuel types.
I have to take a break, okay? Yeah. Let's take a break. We'll come back.
Good.
I want to find out what the difference is there. Jeremy Human, he is the Forest Fire Management Officer for the Williams and Tusayan Ranger Districts. A good website for you is firerestrictions.us, countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here?
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary. Smokey. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're sitting down with Jeremy Human, Fire Management Officer for the Williams and Tusayan Ranger Districts of the Kaibab National Forest, getting kind of feel of how the Kaibab's doing this year so far. And as you mentioned, we're about 3 to 4 weeks ahead of schedule. I think people are kind of realizing that. It's like, wow, you know, we really are into it early this year. So the difference between South Kaibab and North Kaibab, what is the difference?
Okay, so the biggest difference, just fuel type, seasonality for them. You know, where we just got a little bit of moisture last Friday in Flagstaff, Williams, Parks area. The North Kaibab actually got a decent amount, you know, so they hold their snow longer, higher elevation, different fuel types, so mixed conifer. For the most part, I mean, obviously they got a lot of ponderosa pine too, but you know, that mixed conifer reacts different, so they're usually just a handful of weeks behind us. And so they're probably 2 to 3 weeks out. I mentioned the National Fire Danger Rating System, so we have a certain amount of criteria we look at, 10 in particular. And where Williams and Tusayan were at 8 of those 10 for, you know, helping us to identify the need to really consider restrictions, the North Kaibab was only meeting 3 of the 10.
Oh, wow.
So much cooler temps, higher RHs. You know, their 1,000 hours are in a slightly different scenario than ours, you know, still a little bit wetter. And so it's just that difference, you know, being north of the Grand Canyon and a little different aspect on the plateau, things like that. So
It'll still burn, though.
Yep. Yeah, we're still having small fires up there.
Yep, it'll burn.
But, you know, restrictions is really meant to prevent that kind of that worst case scenario. And really those problematic fires, and they're just not quite there yet. So
since I've got you in studio and some of your folks went out to it yesterday, let's hit this really quick if we can too. The Indian Meadow Fire, which caused some evacuations yesterday along Woodlands Road, north of Williams. Of Williams.
It was up near the town of Valley, and it was on Arizona State jurisdiction. So we went out and responded with several of the local fire departments there. Provided an incident commander for a good part of yesterday, a couple of them, as well as some engine resources and some different resources to help suppress it. So really active fire. For those of you that aren't super familiar with Valley, not the most continuous fuels, not really high grass, you know, kind of that PJ, pinyon juniper, just kind of scattered grass mix. And you know, last time I checked late last night, the fire was, you know, somewhere around 100 acres, somewhere pushing a little bit north of that probably. And, you know, that's really great for the lack of the wind we had yesterday.
Lucky, huh?
Yeah, great, meaning that's pretty significant potential for the lack of wind, really the kind of fuels that are there. great indicator of the potential that's out there. So, you know, as folks think about doing yard maintenance, cleaning up some trash, whatever that looks like, a lot of the fires we've had over the last couple of weeks on the Kaibab, the Coconino, and state lands that surround both those forests have, you know, they've started on private lands. Folks trying to sometimes do the right thing, clean things up, others just being careless, reckless. But a lot of starts right now coming off private lands and then spreading on to other jurisdictions. So,
yeah, and then with the winds we've had, the wind events over the last few weeks too. I mean, the rattlesnake fire, I think, over in eastern Arizona is a pretty good example of wind-driven fire right now. It's consumed a lot, but with that fire, and you were on the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, so you know that area really well, I would imagine. Just the fire broke out on the Wednesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no air support whatsoever until Sunday. So 5 days into it, now we can get helicopters, and the winds were that bad over there. So when that sort of happens, any more fire crews have got to be quite a ways out. I mean, you can't just go in where the fire is and stop a fire. You've got to make yourself out farther away from it in order to stop it.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a lot of variables that go into that. So,
60-mile-an-hour winds, though, that's got to be a huge variable.
Yeah, several red flag days. Obviously, we're not going to be going direct. You know, we're not going to be right on the flaming front. But yeah, we had, you know, several red flag days in a row there late last week. Really bad fire conditions. Really great opportunities for high growth, you know. And then, you know, it's early season like we talked about. We're a month ahead trending-wise. So, like a lot of our seasonal employees started 2 weeks ago. A lot of the aircraft are still coming on. The national contracts, they're year-round, they're up. So we always have some aircraft available to us, but the bulk of our workforce basically has been onboarding the last couple of weeks. And so, and that would include aviation and the ground resources. And so, yeah, early season fires like that where you have a big wind event, get a lot of fire growth, we're going to look more at an indirect strategy where we have to back off, try to find some barriers, you know, roads, things like that we can utilize that are already in place versus being able to go direct and put hand line in or things like that.
Wow. So. Okay, so crews are still just coming in now. Okay, so we're almost, I would imagine within the next week or so, everybody will be here and ready to go. I mean, I've noticed the last couple of fires, the response has been boom, just like that, instantly.
Yeah, we're all keyed up. I mean, we started our preseason discussions and our permanent fire folks, you know, been responding to fires for the last several months. So we're all really on top of where we're at condition-wise. You're going to see, just because of the dryness of the year and the seasonality that we're dealing with, you're going to see probably extra heavy initial attack responses is, you know, a prudent and reasonable thing to expect from us, and something you're certainly going to see. So instead of maybe sending 2 engines, we're going to send 4. Maybe we're going to launch aircraft right off the bat, you know. Obviously, there's a lot of variables that go into those decisions on a daily basis, but extra initial attack response in years like this is definitely the norm.
Yeah, okay, let's take our second break. Jeremy Human in studio today. He's the Fire Management Officer for the Williams and Tusayan Ranger Districts of the Kaibab National Forest. Again, the website for you is firerestrictions.us. Stick around, countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool. Oh, yeah. Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Being prepared is a part of who you are. but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a few minutes left with Jeremy Human from the Kaibab National Forest. The Bill Williams Project. Every time I get one of you guys in here, I want to find out. Heather Provencio was in here a couple of years back, I want to say, and could have been more than that. But we were talking about how that mountain is so important to the watershed of Williams down below, just the town alone. It's very important to them. So what's the kind of status on the Bill Williams Project? Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to give you an update. Obviously, super critical watershed for the town of Williams. That's where they, that municipality gets their water from, is those lakes that feed off that. So in the last year or so, good progress. They've prepped like 3,500 acres, so meaning they've prepped it for mechanical work. Okay. It's been marked. It's been, the sales have been identified. Some good work that I was really happy with as the fire management officer along the 122 road, which is on the southern side of the mountain, southeast side of the mountain. We went into a partnership agreement with a group and was able to get a bunch of kind of a big fuel break built along that road. So what that allows us, it's right at the toe of the mountain, and that's going to continue on to the west and around towards I-40 here in the future. But what that allows us to do, obviously, is have a prepped fire break from the get-go. So being the southwest, we predominantly have southwest winds, so any fire that starts south-southwest of that mountain, we've got a great break that we can use as a control feature, keep fire off the mountain, keep that uncharacteristic, unwanted type of wildfire from racing to the top, threatening all those communication sites. So that was a great effort. We have several timber sales going on, again, kind of at the foot of the mountain. So the challenge with Bill Williams is the steep slopes. The upper third of the mountain is extremely steep. It's inoperable for mechanical type equipment. There's not a lot of roads. There's not even a lot of great topography to use as control features for prescribed fire. So this mountain has a lot of challenges on the economic side of things, what's feasible, what's really not. And so we have a specific implementation team, and that's their main focus, is Bill Williams, and trying to think outside the box and really come up with creative ways to treat that mountain, because it's really important that we do so. All right. I think we're out of time, but we want to, again, reiterate, restrictions are going in across the state. Much of the state is under restrictions. North Kaibab might be one of the last places that doesn't have fire restrictions at this point in time. So if you're going to be heading out camping, go to firerestrictions.us for information about fire restrictions going on your national forest that you're visiting. State land, BLM lands, they're all under restrictions right now pretty much, so you need that. And then check with your local fire jurisdiction as well to find out what kind of fire restrictions are in place in your backyard. Sometimes you can use a charcoal grill. Sometimes you can't use a charcoal grill. So check with your local fire jurisdiction to find out exactly what you can and can't do. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it, Paul. Appreciate it very much. We'll be talking with you again, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure. All right, that's today's Countywide. Thank you again so much for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.